Today I'll show how to repair and restore this old cracked dash and turn it into this. Welcome back to the 6th Gear Garage. You may remember about a year ago I did a video showing how to restore this dashboard from one of my 1980s Toyota trucks. And I'll put a link to that video in the description in case you missed it. But it could have turned out better. You can see I had a lot of issues getting the vinyl to sit in this recessed area. It's already bubbled up a lot. There were some issues with the glue not sticking well. And then down here on the end, the vinyl was just too thick and it didn't stretch enough to wrap around the edge how I wanted it to. But down in the comments of that video, I got a lot of help from you, the viewers, on what I could do to make this work better. So today, we're gonna try something different. Last time, I used Bondo, and it took us a long time to apply it, let it dry, sand it smooth, fill in those pinholes, do the process over and over. That was the biggest time killer of the whole project. And a lot of you suggested, why not just use spray foam? So we're gonna do that this time. Next, let's look at the glue I used last time. Fast Tack 92 by Spray Away. It worked okay, but it ended up causing a lot of problems because it is an aerosol, and as we saw, it didn't really stick as well as I'd hoped. This time, I'm going to use Weldwood contact cement, which is a brush on, and that should help solve a lot of issues because I can do it at small sections at a time instead of spraying the whole piece of vinyl down at once. And the biggest mistake I made was that I used the wrong kind of vinyl. This is marine grade vinyl, and even though it's thinner than the first round I tried, it's still pretty thick, and it does stretch a little bit side to side, but it has no stretch at all from top to bottom. So this time I'm going to use 4-way stretch vinyl, which a lot of you recommended. So I can't wait to give this a try on another cracked dashboard. This is going to be our next test subject here. And you can see it has a typical Toyota crack right down the middle of the dash. So let's get started filling this in. So the first thing I'm going to do is take out these vents because the plastic gets brittle and they're not cheap to replace. I have a video on removing the entire dash. I'll put the link in the description. If you look at the back, there are metal tabs on the bottom and on the top. I like to push in the top clips first and just push each corner through a little bit as the clip is pressed down. For these, you can use a flathead if you have big fingers. And that corner, and last one. Now the whole vent can slide out. Put these somewhere safe, out of the way. Grab a ruler or something with a flat edge, and you'll see how much it is crowned at the crack. Even on the front a little bit. I need to trim these down to a V-shaped groove, and that will also widen the crack to remove the crowned area. Then I'll fill it with the spray foam. I've got my mask here. This is going to make some dust. And I've got a very old school dremel. Anyone have an idea what year this is from? There's a lot of attachments, but I think these two are going to be my best bet. I can come in at a 45-degree angle with this guy and then repeat. Or use this gumdrop shaped one. It's a real heavy low grit and just slowly grind along the crack. I like that idea. Move everything that I don't want dusty. Don't forget your mask. Don't forget your cat. Come here. Trust me, you're not going to want to be up here. Let's go. Right meow. That was messy. Let me make sure I went wide enough here. All right, we're flat here. Good here. Yeah, still got to go a little wider back here. Check out this huge gap in the foam. I didn't cut all this out. I just uncover a lot of it. I guess when the rest of the dash shrank over time, it just pulled apart here, like a fault line. It's still curving up a lot here. I need to take this farther back with the dremel, and that will help clean up this groove. There we go. This is actually the stamped metal base. I went all the way through the foam there. That's good though. Gotta get all that old, crispy, weathered foam out of there. I could have gone a little deeper right there, but I think that'll be all right. Time for the great stuff. Make sure to shake it for a full minute. Screw that on there. Now when it comes to this top tray area here, I have this mold I made with Bondo when I worked on the last Toyota dashboard. It fits in there nice and snug. But look at this side. The gap is huge, about a 1/4 inch. So I'm gonna have to add some extra foam on that side. Let's do a quick test here. Oh man, that's a lot. So I'm putting the nozzle down into the original foam so there's no space or air in between the new and the old. I want them to bond together where there were any pits or low spots. Seems to be mostly air. I think tilting the can too much might have something to do with that. There we go. Oh, that was a lot. Just making sure this sticks to the original stuff. Let's try a piece of cardboard. Maybe I can mash it down in the low areas, like this. Oh yeah, this works. The problem is, this stuff sprays out so heavy. It's not really meant for precision work. I'm thin right there. Maybe a little more right here. Now keep in mind, this stuff does expand a lot. One time I put this stuff around the frame of a man door on a shed and then left the door open. If you're laughing right now, then maybe you've done it too. Well, it expanded so much when it cured that it bowed in the vertical side of the door frame so that the door wouldn't close. Oops. Put that over here. Let's try this. Yeah, this works great for controlling how much goes in the gap. Back to the door story. Had to cut and scrape it out of the gap to get the door closed. Lesson learned. Always leave the door closed when using spray foam around the frame. I definitely recommend the cardboard squeegee method. Yeah, it's a little sloppy, but this foam is easy to sand off after it cures. And this is plenty. Actually, too much. Expect this foam to double in size, maybe a little more. So, there's what I've got. Make sure it's spread on the back, too. Break time. We'll see how it looks tomorrow morning. Good morning, garage heads. Look at that. It definitely grew, at least double in size. And it's nice and hard now. That's what she said. Sorry to go Michael Scott on you there, but now it's time to do some trimming. I have a few options here. Coping saw, drywall saw, or a hacksaw blade, and an X-Acto knife. I think this is my best bet because it's a pretty low profile. Like butter. Now I'll use the X-Acto to carve down in the recessed area. This foam is stronger than I expected, and it has bonded to the dash really well. Make some cross sections here. One chunk at a time here. Everyone who commented in the first video about using spray foam instead of bondo, you were right. This is so much easier than sanding over and over again. Alright, I've got it roughly trimmed down to shape. You can see there were some air bubbles in the foam, and that has left me with some pits in the surface. Most of them are smaller though. Now I'm gonna sand it down flush with the dashboard. I got a few sanding blocks here and some 80 grit sandpaper. These blocks are 200 or 300 grit, so they won't do a lot here, but I can wrap the 80 grit paper around these blocks and that will remove a lot more of the foam a lot faster. This block is a lot more rigid compared to the other two. It's good for a flat area like this part on the front. First, I'm going to be sanding in this recessed area here, and I'll be doing that with my finger and the 80 grit. As I sand in here, I might remove some material on the top as well. I don't want to get these smooth first, and then as I'm doing the more difficult area, accidentally take more off the parts I already sanded smooth as I'm doing this. Because it's kind of hard to be 100% accurate with a piece of thick sandpaper wrapped around a finger. Let's stop here and check on the progress. Overall, it's pretty flush in here. I'm happy with the shape of the curve. Let's check it with the mold here. I went a little farther out in the corners. But who's to say this mold is perfect, because the dash I based it off of was also warped and cracked in the same area. I think it's looking good so far. Some of you suggested I just fill in this whole recessed area and make it flush, but there's an optional inclinometer that can be mounted up here, so I'd like to keep it the OEM shape if possible. And my goal is to make this look like it did 35 years ago when it was new from the factory. Next, I need to block sand the rest of this, and I'm going to have to use bondo to fill in these pits left from air bubbles in the foam. I don't know if the glue will bond well to that. Okay, quick test. This 4-way stretch vinyl is a lot thinner than the marine grade vinyl I used last time, and if the surface is uneven or lumpy, it does show through. Now I'm going to use the sanding block to smooth down the flush areas. This block has a tiny bit of flex to it, so that's a little forgiving on any slight curves. Wrap it in the 80 grit paper, and take this foam down to the rest of the dash. And look at that. 80 grit makes quick work of the foam. Way better than all the hours of sanding bondo on the last dash I did. Big thumbs up to everyone who suggested the spray foam. Alright, yeah, I'm definitely going to need a skim coat of bondo on the foam. Lots of little craters. I also read that the contact cement can dissolve foam, so the bondo will make for a nice solid surface. Here's the bondo I used in the last video a year ago. And it's definitely expired. Here's some newer bondo. This should spread a lot easier for filling these imperfections. Oh, this definitely needs stirred. It's been sitting on a shelf for a while. Alright, just mix the filler and hardener. No, I'm using this tiny spreader for these tight areas. It's just a regular spreader cut in half. And I'm using it like a squeegee to really push the bondo down into all the imperfections. The foam is really porous. So by squishing the filler down into it, I think it'll make a good bond. And I'm not going to get it perfect on the first application. I'm not that good. Maybe a professional body worker can nail it, but not me. So I'm mainly focusing on a good strong bond to the foam. And I'll add some extra filler where I can if it's needed. It's easy to put too much on though, and then I'll just make a mess sanding it back down. So there's a fine balance. Also, I'd rather have extra sanding to do on the flat areas of the dash and not in the recessed area, because that's going to be harder to sand with my finger than the flat areas of the dash that I can sand a lot faster with a sanding block. I'm happy with this so far. I'll wipe off some of these globs now before it cures and hardens. Much easier than sanding. While I'm at it, and I have this extra filler already mixed, I'm going to fill in this little seam that goes around here. This is such a minuscule detail that I don't think it'll be very noticeable after you account for the thickness of the vinyl. And I don't know how well I'll be able to get the vinyl to adhere in that little ridge. So I'd rather fill it in and not have to worry about it. I did the same in the first dash video. Here's a close-up look. A lot of pinholes still. So there will be at least one more round of bondo. Alright, it's the next morning and the filler has cured. Nice and hard now. The filler did also make the foam a little more rigid, so that's good. Time to knock this down with some 80 grit. I'm using the sponge block wrapped in the 80 grit paper. Now I'm using the 80 grit paper wrapped around my finger in all of the curved and contour areas. And now I'm using the block again for the flat surface in the recessed area. Scraping all the old dried bondo off the mixing board. To be sure I moved all sanding dust from the dash, I'm going to give it a quick spray and wipe down with some prep spray, or any wax and grease remover will do. Yeah, look what came up already. This stuff evaporates pretty fast. Before round 2 of filler, I want to show you something. All these lighter green areas have been sanded. Those were my high points. All the dark and unscuffed areas are the low areas that the block didn't touch. These low areas are where I need to add more filler to get them flush with the rest of the surface. And this up here is a low spot. Not sure if you can see it there or not, but it needs built up a little more. And I've got some low areas around this ridge. All that dark green. Big one right there. And of course, all these pits. And that pit. And need some more there too. Alright, time for round 2 of body filler. Get this good mixed up again. I'm not going to need as much this time. I'm needing the hardener here to get it all mixed up. A little more. There. When mixing, it's good to go in different directions like this. Scrape it all up and just keep mixing until it's all blended in. Pressing it down like this will help get any air bubbles out. I'm going to use this smaller spreader since I'm working in smaller, more specific areas. Take care of this low spot first. And I need a little bit more over here. I'm going to smooth all this out with a skim layer of filler. fill in all those pits and tiny low spots in the foam. This front area just needs a tiny skim coat over the crack. I'd rather put on a little extra and sand it down if it means this is my last coat of Bondo. Trying to shape this curve here to get it nice and even. It's getting there. Now I'll fill in the rest of these low areas around where the fake seam used to be. I can do a little better here. Smooth that out some more. Need a little more down here. I'm pretty happy with this. I'm going to leave it alone and let it cure. I think anything else I try and do is only going to make it worse at this point. This curve is tough to get just right. That's it for tonight. We'll do some more sanding in the AM. Good morning, garage heads. The body filler is cured and it's time to get to sanding this smooth. As I was sanding, I noticed something wasn't quite right. Post in the comments if you can see the problem. We'll find out shortly. Alright, I'm going to stop here and show you a mistake. Because I always leave in the bloopers so everyone can learn from my goofs. Look at this paper. It's clogging up with Bondo, which pretty much makes it useless. The Bondo didn't cure all the way. It's still a little soft. I mixed it well, but I don't think I used enough hardener. And instead of sanding dust, the soft Bondo just clogs the paper. And here's the problem area. I can scratch it with my fingernail. This was okay. But if this hasn't cured overnight, it's probably not gonna cure. This is all good around here. It's sanded fine. But for some reason, just right in this area is not curing. So maybe I didn't mix it well enough. Or a combination of that and not enough hardener. Sorry guys, I'm trying to look professional. I remember my first time mixing Bondo, right? Easy mistake to make, so I'll show how to scrape it off and do it again. I'm going to need to do a third round anyways. There's a low spot right here on the edge, this curved corner. Yeah, it's so slight. I don't know if you can even see that on camera, but I can feel it. This straight edge also makes a great scraper to scrape off all this uncured Bondo. This is what you don't want, and it will definitely ruin sandpaper. Okay, I got all that removed, and look at this. I've got a high point right on the edge of the crack where the gray is showing through. There you can see the shadow from my finger under the ruler. I should have taken this down farther with the dremel. It's pretty slight though, so I'll see what I can do with some filler. I really don't want to go back to step one now. Do a quick wipe down with some prep spray. Let's try this again. Not gonna skimp on the hardener this time. I don't need much at all this time. You go from general to specific when using Bondo or doing any body work. So if you're doing it right, you should need less on each round than you needed before. There's a generous amount of hardener. Now this will harden faster based on the amount of hardener used, but it's not a huge batch, so I should use it pretty fast. Probably looks darker or more green than the last batch. Making sure it's mixed really well this time. All right. Just a skim coat over here. Feather it out. The curve on the spreader works great here. Definitely need some up here. I'll lay down some extra because that's twice now I didn't add enough. This should be the last time. And a little on the front. I could barely feel a low spot where the foam was used. Alright, this is good. I am done messing with this area. I gotta run. We'll check on this later. Alright, let's see how cured it is. Yeah, that's good. Solid. And I've got some sanding to do. I think I'm about done here. Feels pretty smooth. I gotta go by how it feels and not how it looks, because it's all splotchy. So let's clean it up with some prep spray and get all the dust off. Then, to help me see any imperfections, I'll hit it with some primer. Like this area looks bad, but it actually feels smooth, and that's what matters. Just a quick coat over the body filler. This is only to make it easier to see any imperfections when they're all the same color. And the nozzle just clogged. This half-full can's a few years old. Alright, new can of primer. Let's try this again. Oh, much better. This can flows. Yeah, that's good. We'll let this dry. Oh, I gotta get the very bottom here. Primer is dry. Now I can see some really fine cracks here. All these are so small that they shouldn't be visible under the vinyl. See what I mean? It really makes the imperfections more visible. But these shouldn't be noticeable under the vinyl. I might as well check and make sure. So yeah, when I stretch this out over the biggest imperfections, I can't see anything. Do another check over here. Yeah, we're good. How about here? Maybe a little something showing through there. Might be worth a quick sanding. One advantage to the primer is that it acts as a guide coat. So when you sand, all the low points will stay red, and all the high points will sand through to the color beneath the primer. Really helpful if you're trying to get a perfectly smooth surface, like in bodywork. But I'm not painting this, so we're ready to move on to the vinyl. I just thought of one more thing I need to check on this vinyl, and that's the thickness. When I go to put the dash vent in the opening, this is a pretty tight fit, especially in the corners. Even though this isn't that thick, it will change the tolerances of how things fit together. So I'm going to do a test here, which I highly recommend. Because I don't want to find out later when this is all glued on that my vents don't fit anymore. I need a fresh blade to cut this stuff. Look at that. That's good. It does stretch around the corners much better than the marine vinyl. Even though it's thinner than the marine vinyl I used last time, it's still making the vents fit too tight. This plastic is brittle to begin with, so I'm not gonna press my luck forcing them in. By the way, I'm gonna paint the vinyl to match when I'm all done. We'll see how this matches up. This is charcoal gray. The cap is pretty close. The vents have really yellowed over time. They're definitely more of a warm gray now. Alright, pop this guy back out, ever so carefully. Now the right side vent is different than the middle ones. Here's one. Oh, nope, it's cracked. These things are really brittle after 35 years. Here's one from an 84 to 86 dash. They have full length recessed area on top of the dash, but these wrap around on the edge and they actually won't fit into the 87 and 88 dash opening. The dash is slightly different here. Let's see. Here we go. Quick comparison. Brown is 84 to 86, gray is 87 to 88, and also 89 4Runner. I listed some of these extra vents and other spare OEM Toyota parts in my store. I'll put a link in the description. Yeah, that's really tight. You could trim the vents or trim the dash here. I picked the dash. Got the old school dremel out again, and I'm going to try these two bits. I'll try the big one first. Then I switched to the smaller one for the very inside of the corners. I'm still being careful. And it's in. Much easier. And look at that corner. This 4-way stretch vinyl is awesome. I got this from Amazon since I couldn't find any local at Joann or Hobby Lobby. 36 by 58 inches was 20 something bucks. That's enough to restore maybe 3 dashboards. I'll put a link in the description. All these corners look good with the vinyl over them. Next, I sanded any edges that were left rough from the Dremel. There are some low areas where I dremeled a little too much, but you can't actually see them with the vinyl stretched over. So I'll use glue on the face of the dash, but not the edge around the opening, and that'll keep the vinyl smooth above any uneven low areas. Alright, it's vinyl time. First I'm going to figure out about how much I need and position the dash on one end so I don't waste too much material. I bet there's enough for 3, maybe 4 dashboards here. Give myself a little extra. And I'm starting with the recessed area first this time, per your comments in the last video. And also using brush on contact cement per your comments. Cliff notes, brush this on both surfaces, let them sit for 15 to 20 minutes, then press them together and roll. Got a cheap brush here. And I ordered this roller for $9. I'll include links in the description for everything I'm using today. This roller was a couple bucks more than the cheapest one, but it has bearings, so it should last a long time. And I like wooden handles. I'm only doing the middle first. Not even getting close to the edges yet. I'll do those next, but first, I just need a starting point. Dripped a little here. Oh, this actually removes the primer if I wipe it off. Hopefully that won't be a problem. I need to make some marks. Red Sharpie kind of shows up on black. Alright, so I have a corner here, and here, and other corner, and last corner. Now I have a general idea where I need to brush on the glue. By the way, do this in a ventilated area. Definitely don't want any sparks or open flame in the room. Alright, now we wait. See you in 15. Okay, you can see the contact cement is ready. It's not as shiny now, more of a semi-gloss. And it's tacky. I did put some of the glue directly on the foam, and you can see it's still fine. So the contact cement does not dissolve the foam. So I could have applied it directly over the foam. But it was pretty porous and rough after I cut it down to shape. So I'd probably need Bondo either way. Just gonna flop this over carefully. Too far. Alright, that looks good and centered. Now I'm lightly pressing it out from the center to avoid any air bubbles or wrinkles. Now, just give it a good roll. This roller does an awesome job. I didn't have a roller for the other dash I covered. This really lays the vinyl down smooth. According to the instructions on the can, you don't need to use any clamps. So I probably won't need the mold this time. They say a roller is all you need. and it definitely works. There's a couple lines here from the edge of the roller. My thumbs kind of smooth those out though. It's been about 5 minutes, and you can see it's already bonded the two surfaces. I'm sure if I pulled hard enough, they would come apart. But it's time to move on to the outer edge of the recessed area. That works. Be sure to give the contact cement a stir after sitting. Just like before, I applied the contact cement with the brush on both surfaces. The back of the vinyl soaked up some of the glue, so I put some extra on there and let it sit for 15 minutes. Then it was time to bond them together. The roller doesn't fit in the curved areas, so I just used my thumbs to press down the vinyl. Then I repeated the same steps for the other side of the recessed area. "15 minutes later, it was time to bond the two surfaces. I'm good on this edge, but just like last time, the vinyl is coming up at this recessed edge. A little of the glue seeped through the material too, but that's not a huge deal. Looks like I am gonna have to use the mold after all. I gotta get this right before I go any farther. Now, last time, this saran wrap texture ended up being pressed onto the vinyl. So this time, I'm putting a rag down first. Give it a little cushion. And clamp it down. Okay, it's been about 24 hours. Let's see if this worked or not. Oh, and it did. It looks really good. So I didn't pick up the texture on the bottom of the mold this time, but I got the texture from the rag instead. Looks the same, huh? This should go away after a while though. Oh, look at this. It didn't get pressed down in this corner. Probably because this mold was made from the other dash, and that dash was also really damaged in that area. So after I repaired them both, they're probably shaped a little different there. But overall, so far so good. Time for more glue. I continued on the top of the dash first, since it was on the same plane as the recessed area. Notice I had to apply about twice as much glue on the back of the vinyl because the fabric base really soaked it up. 15 minutes later, I pressed it down from left to right and then rolled it the same. Then I moved on to the face of the dashboard. I made some marks on the back of the vinyl like before to give me an idea of how far to apply the glue. "15 minutes later, I pressed the front side out from the center to the edges, then went back over the vinyl with the roller. Let's take a break for a closer look at how things are going so far. Real happy with all of this. Here's some glue seep through, but you can't see it after it dries. Here too. This is so much better. I can't believe I used that spray glue last time. The contact cement and the brush is the way to go. And the roller, of course. I'm going to call it a day and let this sit overnight, just to be sure it's all good and cured well. Good morning, my beautiful dashboard. Today, I'm going to work on this top back edge. First, I'm going to cut off all this extra material and get it out of the way. I have a little bit of a wrinkle right here, kind of an eyesore, but if I can stretch this just right, then it's almost not noticeable. I focused on just the edge and corner for right now, since I had to pull that wrinkle smooth. Alright, it's been 15 minutes. It's important that I stretch and press this area down just right to eliminate that wrinkle. So I'm starting at the exact center of the wrinkle and stretching the vinyl away with my thumb as I'm pressing down. That worked. Now I'm just pressing slightly toward the outside, getting everything where I like it, making sure there's no other wrinkles that pop up. Oh shoot, just noticed that this is starting to lift up a little bit, but on this other edge now. This one is still good though. Roll this down. I'll do from here over next, but I wanted this to be perfect first. Here's a better look at that wrinkle from like 2 inches away. Yeah, it's there, but it shouldn't be too noticeable when it's installed. Next, I continue working along the top back edge of the dash. Some clamps worked perfect to keep the fabric from touching the dash while the glue got tacky. This was all going so well, and then I realized I messed up. I'm a little short on material for this corner. At some point early on, when I first started on the recessed area, the vinyl must have shifted over, and now I have too much over here and not enough here. There's not enough stretch to make this work. So, learn from my mistakes, measure twice, glue once. I'm gonna keep on going since we've come this far. It won't even be visible except when the passenger door is open. Even though this 4-way stretch vinyl works great, there's just no way it's going to stretch around these 90-degree edges. I'm going to have a lot of leftover material here that I'll have to cut off and have a seam. So I'm going to work on the front edge now because I won't be able to go back and apply glue after I glue the end down. Just going to eyeball this here. Looks good. And put some extra on there. Now I'll get the end. And some on the vinyl. And we'll be back in 15. Alright, let's do this. I kind of botched this on the first dash I attempted, but I'm feeling better about this one. Taking care of the front of the dash first, since that's more visible than the end. Having a hard time with this wrinkle here. There we go. Using two hands definitely helps. Now for the end. So I'm going to have a cut right here. My goal is to get this end as smooth as I can while pushing any extra material to the corner. Then I can cut out all the extra material when I cut for the seam on that bottom corner. This 4-way stretch vinyl is so much better to work with on contoured surfaces like a dashboard. But it's still tough to get it to lay down when you have a lot of angles in different planes like this area. Thankfully, this glue is a little more forgiving than the spray glue I used on the first dash. You can see I'm really putting a lot of work into this, trying to press all the wrinkles down as they form. And it's getting there. The middle is looking pretty good. Let's roll that just to make sure it stays put. Now I'll deal with these small wrinkles up here. And that's about as smooth as I'm going to be able to make it, without any sort of cut to remove extra material. But I really don't want to cut unless I have to. If at any point you see something that I could be doing better or differently, let me know. This is only my second time. So you can see all the extra material down here in this lower corner. I'm trying to smooth the end and push all that extra toward the corner. That's looking pretty good. Let's roll. I'm just pinching this together for now, trying to get everything smooth around it. I'll go back and cut after it's dry. Give it another roll for good measure. I think this is it, at least for my current skill level. Because I really had to work on this end to make it lay down smooth and not wrinkle, I'm going to clamp it just to be sure it doesn't lift at all and come back up. You can see it kind of wants to wrinkle up. This is just a piece of thick cardboard. There, I'll let this cure and then I'll come back and make cuts on both sides of this extra vinyl, and hopefully have them meet flush in the middle so they're not too obvious. Alright, I let this sit overnight. It should be all cured now. Alright, that's good. Oh no. I have a crease from the edge of where the cardboard was clamped down. Hopefully that will go away after a while since there's no more pressure on it. A little bit of wrinkle up here, but that's not too visible when installed. I thought about having one of these flaps just overlap on top of the other like I did on the last dashboard, but I've decided to cut on this side and try to butt the cuts up to each other so they're flush. I've got one chance to get this right. That was kind of stressful. You can't undo a cut. But here's what I ended up with. After a little more trimming, it was time to glue it down. And after the contact cement became tacky, I pressed it in place and rolled it. So, here's how it's looking so far. You know, I have these recessed areas here for the mounting screws. They're not really too visible when installed, but I'd like to press them down a little better, especially this one. So all I did to make a mold here is get a piece of scrap paper, roll it up into a paper ball, then clamp it down in place. And that presses it into the shape of the recessed area. It's been a few hours. Let's see how these screw holes turned out. Much better. These go a lot deeper now. Paper ball and a clamp. Keeping it simple here at the 6th Gear Garage. Back to this cut. Like I said, I could just fold this over and that wouldn't look horrible, but I really want to try to cut it and have the two cuts butt up flush for a smoother transition. When I fold this down and put a little pressure on it, I can see the edge of the other cut under it. So I'll just draw a line over that edge. And that will be a guide for where to cut this top flap. And I'll trim it this way to leave some extra to fold over and glue to the inside of the dash. These things barely cut paper. Here we go. Grabbed these from the kitchen. I'm going to be real careful here. I'm staying just on the edge or outside of the line because I'd rather not cut enough than cut off too much. This is pretty close. I need to remove another sliver. I'm ready to glue this, but it's going to need some help staying down while the glue cures. I tested some masking tape and it didn't hold very well. Packing tape seemed to stick a little better, so I'll use that since I can't really fit a clamp on this corner. I'm not going to miss the smell of this contact cement. This is kind of a crucial area because of the seams, so I want to be sure it's glued well, so there's no chance of it peeling up over time. I had to put a little clamp here to hold the vinyl back while it gets tacky. It kept wanting to curl up over and touch the dash. Now, if all of my cuts were accurate, this should all line up. Here's a close-up, extreme close-up, so you can see every detail. It's definitely not perfect. I had a tough time getting the cuts to be precise. I think stitching, like they do on leather dashboards of really high-end or custom show cars, I think that's the only solution for a contour like this. And sewing is a skill that I have never explored. At least not yet. Who knows what I'll get into down the road. Okay, we'll check back on this later. And then I'll cut the vent openings. Alright, that came off without any problem, and the glue held everything in place. Now for the vent openings. I'm just using a razor blade and I'm cutting a X in the opening, being careful not to go too far, I can always make the cut bigger, but not smaller. Let's do a test fit. It's definitely tight. I'm just taking it slow. Because remember, these old plastic vents are kind of fragile and not exactly cheap to get another used one on eBay. But there it is, and I'm really happy with that. The way the vinyl stretches around the opening, this looks great. Next, I cut off all the extra vinyl material around the edges of the dash. Well, I threw one more mistake in to show you all what not to do. I cut the X on this one a little too big, and that's how it turned out. A small blemish, but it doesn't look as good as these guys. Measure twice and cut once, folks. Now, let's get this thing painted charcoal gray. Just gave it a quick wipe down, and now I've got it hanging up so I can coat all sides at once. And pretty soon, it's going to be charcoal gray. Alright, always a good idea to test in an inconspicuous area first. Looks good. Multiple light coats are always better than one heavy coat. I plan on 3 coats. It's been 10 minutes and this is all dry now. Just want to make sure I get in all these contour areas. It's a little hard to see with the shadows. Looking pretty good after 2 coats. I've used this Duplicolor vinyl and fabric paint before. It's really easy to use and very forgiving. It seems to dry even and uniform, even if you're heavy in some areas. I see a tiny bit of black showing through here. I've got my phone light on now to help look for any thin areas. And it's good. I'll let it dry for an hour. And here's the final result. Overall, not 100% perfect, but a lot better than my first attempt, and a whole lot better than a cracked dash. I'll have links in the description for all the products I used in this tutorial. But I'm not done yet. I'm going to put this restored dashboard, as well as the previous one I restored, through a torture test of summer sun, heat, and UV rays, followed by a cold, brittle winter. And we'll see which products hold up better over time. The marine vinyl, Fast Tack 92 spray adhesive, and long strand fiberglass bondo that I used on the first dash, or the 4-way stretch vinyl, weldwood contact cement, spray foam combined with USC Chromate light body filler, and Duplicolor vinyl and fabric paint I used on this dash. Because if you're going to do all this work for a perfect dashboard in your ride, you want it to last. Thanks for watching, and consider subscribing for more how-to videos and project vehicle updates here at the 6th Gear Garage. Hey, there's a link to my store in the description where you'll find all kinds of rad Yoda merchandise like shirts, hoodies, posters, phone cases, and a lot more. Thanks to everyone out there who supports the channel. It really means a lot to me to see people wearing something I designed.